Bristol Hospital update. You're on.
Do it from here, or?
You can sit there.
It'll make you feel important to know.
Thanks. So it's been a busy, was it now 2 months? 2 months now. So we have all of the consultants we need that are necessary on board: architects, engineers, facilities planners. Actually hired a consulting firm that does demand analysis and is helping us, right size the space and make sure we have the right services in the space. And we are officially on target to hit the next milestone, which is the 20th of May. While I'm not going to share details, sizes, location, everything right now, because we're still working through that with civil engineering. I think we're going to make the deadline, aren't we, Tiffany? So Tiffany's been, she's been running the process for us. I know there was a little back and forth with the state, and the thing that I think is important to understand is we're not backing off this. We've committed to do this, and we're going forward. And the all-in, I think the cost to get to the 20th is about $500,000. And we've engaged all of the folks, and all of them are working. So I don't see any issue whatsoever at this point. And I'm happy to say we're on track.
Great news.
So
Let me add a little bit. Where does the city fit in with this? So I'm working with Tiffany all the time to support what they're doing, right? So this is the projects that's in front of us, so we're here to support it. So we had about a month ago, we had all of Bristol Hospital's, engineers, consultants, et cetera, into the city. They met with all of our city folks, engineers, Kristen and I from the BDA. So we sort of to mobilize the effort. Kristen and I we work with potential businesses every day and finding them space, and obviously, we want to support the hospital's effort in that way as well, to consider that as their building as a potential space for their location. So that's kind of where we're at with the hospital, continuing to support what they're doing, and I'll talk about our consultant in a minute.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Just a comment from the chair of the
Chairman of the board.
I just
John?
want to say that our board has directly been involved in the process. We have a committee that's established to follow this process and to continue it forward. And we think it's going to be great for the city, and it's going to be great for the hospital. So we think this is a good community project. We're going forward with all the publicity in the paper. Unfortunate as it might seem, we wanted to make the board and the community feel that this is a going process that's going to go forward. And barring anything that we can't foresee at this point, it's going to be successful.
To the chair, Kurt, I heard that, the feedback I've heard from your physician staff, and there's a great deal of excitement.
Absolutely.
And one of your goals, I know, is the ability to attract competent physicians. I heard that.
We're really excited about that. We had at least 2 urologists that, because we weren't able to readily put adequate office space on the table, that didn't sign with us. And urology is a pretty significant focus area for us because of some succession planning that we need to do. And so this is going to help us. Even going through the process is creating excitement, and it makes it easier for us to recruit.
The more detail that comes out, it sounds like it's a win-win.
Absolutely, there's no question about it. We're just truly excited to do this. I think we're learning a lot from the process too. So we're using very contemporary designs for the internal space, which gets us a lot more efficiencies and flexibility. It's going to be a great project, a great opportunity. And as John said, we're not backing off.
Well, I think your statement that you just said, you spent $500,000 to get to where you're going to be,
Right.
shows the commitment from Bristol Hospital.
No question.
You wouldn't.
Well, we are capitalizing that money.
Yeah.
So our plan is to actually include it in the developer costs. So the only way that happens is if we actually finish the building and get this thing done.
Kurt, and I don't know if you want to talk about this.
That's
I don't know if you want to talk about this publicly or not, but the talk out there has been, how is the hospital affording to pay for this when they don't have the money from the state?
So that's a great question, and it's a pretty easy answer. So we've now Jones Lang LaSalle has a list of, I think, 26 potential developers expressed. Jones Lang LaSalle is the property manager folks that we hired to help facilitate this process and keep everybody on track, and help us manage all the cost of all the consultants. They have unbelievable experience in doing this all over the place. They just did a large medical office building for Orange Hospital in New Jersey, and they just really, they know what they're doing. So as part of this process, we've accepted, I've forwarded all the emails to Tiffany, and we've added any potential developer that anybody's, I've gotten lots of emails from people saying, I'd like to be involved in proposing on this project. So we have 26 on the list that Jones Lang LaSalle compiled. And so there's a lot of interest in this project. But to get to your specific question, so we would essentially sign, leases for the space, long-term leases for the space, which then enables the developer to provide the financing for the project. So it's really not our money up front that builds the building. It's our money that guarantees the leases for a period of time. Typically, it's 15 to 20 years. And so it's not the hospital's money. And it's a good thing. We get new space, we get more efficient space, we get the ability to attract and retain key specialists and primary care physicians, and we consolidate in a way that makes it more efficient for the folks in the community to actually get the services.
Great. Mayor, that's the beauty of the plan. Because the hospital's doing this when they pledge their leases, they don't use much of their capital at all. And the beautiful thing for the city is, as you know, when a developer owns it, it's taxable eventually. So that's a benefit. Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It is a tax. And I think the other thing that's important to note, that there's a lot of conversation about ambulatory facilities where our hospitals extend their license out and they bill at hospital rates. And one of the key features of this building is going to be that we're not doing that. We're not taking our, what they call provider number. It's kind of like when you do your tax return, your social security number, your provider number, and basically getting the same rates that we would get at the hospital. What all the diagnostic services that go in there will be at ambulatory, outpatient, non-hospital rates, so it'll be more affordable for the community, which is really an important part of this project. There's a lot of attention and focus about, if you do the hospital rates, I'm going to pay more for this service. That's not going to be the case. This is not going to be a hospital facility.
And I have to commend the hospital for stepping up to a development that nobody wanted to come there. You've stepped up, you've invested into the community, where you are the second largest employer, and this is huge for downtown. This is what we needed, and Bristol Hospital stepped up to the plate.
It's very exciting to be able to do this, to be honest with you. I think when you think about our mission to really help improve the health status of this community, I think this is a great step for us to really try to improve on the things that we've already done. Access, services, makes a heck of a lot of sense. So.
Great. Judge?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor. I look at the Boys and Girls Club project, which you've been involved in over the last 2 or 3 years, and there was a lot of discussion. A lot of people said it would never happen, but when people have, community people have a drive to do something, and the hospital leadership is behind this, there's no reason why this can't go forward like the Boys and Girls Club went forward. A beautiful building, stabilized the West End. This hopefully will stabilize the downtown project, which will be good for everybody, I think.
Great.
We're really excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good.
Malone and MacBroom introduction.
Yeah, I'll just take this. So, first of all, maybe I could back up a little bit and talk about where we've been the last month or so in our quest to secure a consultant for across the street. The city's looking for engineering and planning services. We just talked with Bristol Hospital, but there's still 10 acres left on that site, right? And what we need to do is plan it out. We need to be able to demonstrate what the site will look like, from access roads to, structured parking, public gathering space, which is an important part. So, when the mayor and I and Kristen and, Dawn and whomever go out and we market the site and we look for end users, we need to be able to show them something. It's difficult to talk with a potential tenant about a potential site across the street. Having something to show them is much more effective. So we, 2-3 weeks ago, about a month ago, went out to bid. The purchasing office went out to public bid for the services. Malone and MacBroom was one of 4 consultants that submitted for the project. We held interviews, and we were just really impressed with Tom and Mike and the team's presentation and sort of how you look to tackle the project. And I was hoping maybe that it's very early, by the way. We still have to, the ink is barely dried on the contract, so this is very early in the process, but since we're having the regularly scheduled meeting tonight, I asked Malone and MacBroom to come to just sort of introduce themselves, but maybe to touch on some of those highlights of your presentation to us, and so the public can get a feel for kind of your process and how you plan to program the site. So I want to thank you first for coming here. It's early. And maybe talk a little bit about some of those highlights that we found so engaged, that we were really engaged with. I think the idea about the public participation process is very important for this site. Renaissance did a lot of things very well, and one of the things they did well was that public participation piece, and we need to go down that same road. So maybe you could touch on that. Anything else you'd like to sort of introduce yourselves to the public?
Sure. My name is Tom Daly. I'm a senior project manager, a civil engineer with Malone and MacBroom, and I will serve as the main point of contact. And one of the elements of that is I do work about half municipal and half private. So while I'm doing a lot of medical office buildings by UConn Health Center, so we have that kind of balance of both municipal and private clients. To be honest, I actually had a developer already call me about this piece. So he's been watching it. He doesn't know, but is a Farmington developer, and he's like, I'm going to watch it. I want to know what's going on in the future. So that's the approach we brought to it. So it's really trying to bring a practical approach to this. We understand we've worked on projects that there's some fatigue, I guess would be a description of it. But with Bristol Hospital's investment, boy, what a great thing to build upon, and we're excited to just build upon their investment. So we kind of bring a very humble approach to it. We don't have predisposed concepts. It's about putting together a very practical plan. We can all sit here and say we want cobblestone streets and wonderful things, but we have to bring a practical approach to it and a fiscally responsible approach to it. And some of the challenges we see on the site is the lack of vision. I mean, how can you go out on the street and talk to developers, because they're going to say, I don't see it. I don't see it. So, and then also, guess what? I can't afford it. How can the city put infrastructure in to make it more affordable for developers? Because those are the conversations we always have. But also build upon the infrastructure that the city's already done. We were so proud. To be honest, one of the most proud projects we've ever been involved in is the park project for the town. I mean, for the city, people don't even work. We didn't even work on the project. Talk about that series of projects, because it was such an influential project. So we're going to bring that kind of same type of proudness, but really a humble approach to the project, and bring a realistic. And then Mike is a senior planner, runs our planner group, and I'm going to have him talk about, but we've really honed this public outreach approach to it. Once again, a very humble approach to it, but Mike has recently been very successful on public outreach in New Britain, and we're really going to use some of those lessons learned from there.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. One of the key things to a plan of this nature is that it needs to be the community's plan, and that's one of the things we feel very strongly about. We understand what works from a land use side, an engineering side, the technical side of what this site can support, what are the modern business models that would be going in there, how best to be able to approach it from that standpoint. But what we really want to be able to get our hands around is to be able to understand, now that we're into this next phase of development, have a big medical office there, it brings a whole set of new opportunities. And we want to be able to canvass the community, talk to the local business owners to understand what they would like to see there. What would be essentially a complementary use there? What are we looking at for public spaces? what does the community desire from those standpoints, and be able to work those into the site design as we begin testing out and flexing out that additional 10 acres to see what we can get there, see what is best supported not only from the market, but also what can be best to help support the grand list going forward. So it becomes this balance then of community uses that are supported in the community, needed in the community, but as well as helping to stabilize the area and provide some boost to the growing the grand list, and to be able to make sure that the site itself then becomes really the cornerstone of the downtown, and that it ties in well with the downtown, and it works with the existing fabric that's there, but in a complementary way that it doesn't overpower, but it forms a nice balance. And finally, you're able to begin seeing that hard work over all these years start to come through fruition. And it was, great to hear from the hospital today, to listen to their investment, and knowing what it means to everybody in the room, and knowing what it's going to mean for a catalyst to the site. When we typically get involved in these planning processes, the first step is getting that first development in place. I mean, that's the big challenge, is you're trying to strategize what's phase one of the implementation plan. And it makes our job a little easier as consultants in knowing that, we have a great catalyst, we have a good phase one of that. It makes the planning for the remainder of the site that much more dynamic, and you have, you're rooted in reality in that we know we're going to have end users. We can generate a number of people that are going to be generated by it, the employment base generated by it, and really wrap that into the whole plan.
But from community outreach standpoint, what is community outreach? Okay? It could be somebody standing in front of a room like this, lecturing, or just saying, hey, by the way, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? That's not how our approach is. We do more of a boots on the ground approach. What happened in New Britain recently, we bought lunch, we bought dinner. We put almost 5 or 6 people in the room. It's not one person with 40 people in the back, and everybody's sitting there with crossed arms, and they're like, okay, well, I didn't really, that's community information, wasn't community outreach. So what we do is then we break into small little focus groups, a lot of hands-on. We lay out trays, stickers, people are putting in saying, those are the images I like, put a sticker on that. So it's really, but we break it down into a very small thing.
Yeah.
We were talking about, Mike, is how do we engage the business group? Because they have other issues. They're not necessarily available at 7 o'clock for residents. So how are we going to find our way? We were just talking, should we have a food truck day where we're doing something over in the corner and we're letting all the businesses come out? We got to try to engage.
Or is it knocking on doors approach?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even Mike talks about is, how do you engage the 25 and under? Well, guess what? Social media.
Yeah.
Be honest, not my thing. Not my thing. But what we did in New Britain was we canvassed it, and we found out that most of the people are not following traditional newspaper. No offense to the Bristol Press, but that's a great resource. But they're going to read. I read the Bristol Press. That's how I find my thing. But these young kids, they're following Twitter feeds.
Yeah.
So we end up finding, and we always ask people, how'd you find out about it? Well, everybody in New Britain. Well, I got the mayor's Twitter feed. Thanks.
Yeah.
Here I am. So it's about not only engaging the same people that are always involved in the community, it's about somehow extracting that. I had a situation where we were looking at how to expand the medical office campus in Farmington and into the residential. And Mike's counterpart, Rebecca, was doing a presentation, and everybody in the room was sitting there with crossed arms. I'm like, this is not good. We're not getting any public thing. And she would not back down until she started extracting them, and basically like, okay. And then funny thing, by the end of the meeting, there was actually some dialogue coming back, but and that one was a little more, different situation, but it's about extracting and let people, and then they'd start breaking down, and it may be as simple as sandwiches, drinks, very informal. It's not a tie-wearing event where we're standing up there. So that's the approach we bring to it, but it's the social media is a component that is really new, but it allows you really start getting out to hundreds of people instead of just one or two.
And we recognize that especially some of the younger professionals, those that have young families in the community also, a night meeting, a Saturday meeting, those traditional things do not work. So what we're able to do is via SurveyMonkey and all of the different online surveys is to be able to ask those critical questions, to be able to get that out there. And what we've noticed, we did a downtown project in Wallingford that we just wrapped up, and within 1 month for a community of 50,000, we ran a survey for 1 month, and we had 1,800 people respond to our community survey. But the interesting part is we held 3 workshops during that same 3-month window, and the demographic for our workshop was that those that are much older, say 45 plus in the community, but then the demographic for our online survey, we really hit that 25 to 45-year-old.
I don't like that. I'm into that.
I know.
Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, but what it shows is that you want to give everybody an equal opportunity to be able to chime in and say, I think this, and here's what you should do, and to be able to have that input and let them feel that they're able to give that input, and then we take it, we consider it also. It's not just those few who typically show up at every workshop. I mean, it would be great to do some of our design charrettes and to have it in an auditorium because you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there. But the sad thing is that everybody's so busy in this day and age. We need to connect with them on their time, and we are very adept at doing so, where we can put information out there, get it on the website, show some of our thoughts or ideas, and have people weigh in on them and comment, and it's just as well as if they're being there. It's just as effective. And we find out that in the end, when it comes time to get buy-in on a project like this, that if everybody had a chance to chime in, it's a much more successful project from everybody's standpoint.
So, and 2 other things that I want to touch on just quickly. The public participation piece was key, but also your willingness and your enthusiasm for working with Bristol Hospital from day one, right? And you've already sort of had a chance to speak with them, and there'll be a lot more of that. Obviously, anything that you all work out on the site needs to be okay with Bristol Hospital and vice versa. But your willingness to work with other prospective developers on the site, right? Next week, we have an appointment scheduled. Thank you for that. So, I mean, you're not kidding. You know, again, the contract is brand new, but you're going to be working with us on that. And, you know, we have had some local interests. So, thank you for that. Also, grants, too, because I see Dawn sitting there. But I was a grant writer for a while here, and I dreamed, and Dawn dreams of writing federal grant applications for some of the infrastructure over there or whatever we can. And you all had the experience there and the knowledge and the ability to assist us, so it was a clear cut for us.
I can tell you, as mayor now, but councilman, I worked a lot with Malone and MacBroom on different projects. We're working with one on our synthetic fields, and it's always been a pleasure working with you. So I'm excited to have you here as mayor. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I be a first citizen to offer a
Sure.
piece of it?
Sure.
You won't even have to owe me dinner for this.
You can still come and get it.
Well, all right, never mind, you can owe me dinner. No, one of my thoughts has been, and I see it elsewhere, and we talk about fields, and we talk about synthetic fields, et cetera. Something like, what do you call it? Not a balloon, not a tent,
Dome.
but dome type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
athletic facility,
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
either more firmly built in the dome.
Yeah, okay.
But the idea being is that you want to appeal to the parents that are trying to address their athletic concerns for their children. And there's nobody who's going to spend more money more easily than those parents. And, you know, honestly, if you want to talk about taxes and you want to talk about what's not going to hurt the community, they'll pay the fee to do this. It's not on the back of the taxpayer. And I think between the fee for service that you can probably take care of the expenses that are involved with most of this. And it would be a big asset to the community. It draws people from miles around for big tournaments. And the Boys Club has had highly unusual success with the fact that they have a big gym. And that gym has brought in a lot of tournaments. The tournaments are being in the schools now because they're too big. They don't have enough space for everybody to come in. And I think maybe some kind of a use over there might be. I don't know how the rest of the plan goes, but Bristol's always struggling for fields. We have the Roberts property we've done nothing with for more than 10 years, I guess, by now. So this might help alleviate some of those concerns and give us an opportunity to make some money on the side. So, food for thought.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Dan Stu. Just one important factor which your Renaissance plan never had taken into consideration is that gotta save some parking. So this building next door, the courthouse and police department, the other one, don't have economic obsolescence because we're gonna need an acre in there.
There is a plan to put a parking
Yeah.
structure across the street
Okay.
for City Hall, for the courthouse. So that is in the long-term plan as it develops.
Okay. Because without the parking there,
Yeah.
these three buildings are, particularly these two buildings, are a
Yep.
major problem.
I agree with you. Anything else? Okay. Tim?
I'm coming a little late to the party, so if I am redundant, please forgive me. I did catch Mr. Barwis' comments, and it's nice to know that the funding for this isn't going to come from the taxpayers, that it's going to come from the developers. Given the letter that you got from OPM and the kind of coverage you got in the local newspaper, one could easily make the argument that there was a direct connection between Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement and to whether or not the project was actually going to fly. I mean, first we heard, because the money was there, the project was on. Money was gone, project was off. Money's back on, now the project is on again. For the average reader, that's the connection you're gonna make, so I was glad to hear.
I don't know when you came in, but Kurt did say this project is happening.
That's
Okay.
what I'm saying. I came a little late to the party, but I got the end of his remarks. My question that I've been asking all along, and I'm sure this can be answered with a yes or no. The tax exempt status that the hospital enjoys, that does not carry over to this building.
Not at all. This is not gonna be owned by the hospital.
Okay. Like I said, yes or no. All right. Last one, the retail space. I'm gonna go on rumor, and I want you to know this is all I'm going on, that the retail space is gonna be hospital supplies. Is there
The hospital
any?
has committed to putting retail down there. They haven't said what it's gonna be yet.
Okay. So that's
They're-
not a yes
it's
or a
too-
no?
It's too early in the project to know what it's gonna be.
Okay.
They don't even know what the building looks like yet.
All right. I'm just throwing it out there.
Anything
And
else?
again, one of our jobs, like one of the things that we work on is space downtown or anywhere really that's vacant, that's empty, that we're building owners are looking for tenants. We look to place tenants in different kinds of spaces and work with realtors. Nothing's gonna change here with the Bristol Hospital project. Frankly, it's exciting for us because it's new construction, something different. So we'll continue to do that and get it, the best retail
So
options.
zoning still applies, the first floor, it has to be retail.
In the majority of the building, yeah.
Through the chair. Go ahead.
Tim, you should know that we've made our concerns about retail space very open and clear with the hospital about what we expect. We didn't want it all like wheelchair sales and companion orthopedic sales stuff, and they know that. The second thing is, it's really important that we manage people's expectations about this project and they understand it. The letter that they got from OPM shows that Barnes didn't understand, I think, what the hospital was doing, how they were doing it, because you missed this part, they're not using their capital. But what's important, they have to attract a developer, and a pretty substantial developer to get this thing done. And in order to do that, the developer has to have a confidence that all the rest of the house is in order. And so that's the significance, I think, from the hospital standpoint, and what we care about, because in order for them to be successful, they have to attract a developer that both will, be confident in the hospital and what they can do. But the second thing is, they want to get the best value they can out of negotiations with the developer. That's the stuff that becomes critical, down to the short strokes, that becomes so critical in any negotiation.
Well, and to add on to that, I think the retail, this is great to have retail in this building, but not only will this project help the remaining 10 acres, it's gonna help the other side of Main Street. I envision other restaurants coming in over there. I envision those buildings going up in value drastically. So there's gonna be retail downtown, and I see it starting the soonest on the other buildings that are already existing that, feed off of Barley Vine, and you could walk up and down and do the bar crawl, I think, at some point if you wanted.
Where you plan on putting the parking garage?
That's up to
Where the
developers. That's up,
Mamatio building was?
that's up
We
to
don't even own
developers.
that property, do we?
That's up to developers, that's not us.
The idea is to put it on the site.
That
Oh,
big
no,
old
we don't own
space
that,
there.
no, we don't own that. You got a question?
Yeah, why all of a sudden developers are now interested?
Well,
I mean,
bottom
where
line
were they
is-
before?
Bottom line is because Bristol Hospital is committed to bringing significant investment downtown and bringing 600 to 800 people downtown every day. As soon as they announced that project, Justin's office and my office already received a couple calls, because they see that you're gonna have people on the ground. They don't have to be that first person anymore. That first person is already there. You wanna add to that?
Critical mass.
Okay, no, sorry, you're more important than
Any of you, did I say that fine? or- Okay.
Feet on the ground, that's what it's all about.
Dave?
The difference also is that a developer is going to have most of the building is going to be leased.
Yeah.
So obviously, when you start off with a fully leased building, I mean, that's a great way to start. It's like building an apartment building and having it all leased. That's a great thing.
I know it's early, but do you have any general idea? Like, are you thinking a housing? Are you thinking like a chain store? Are you thinking any?
Here's the thing, we're not thinking anything. This is more about putting infrastructure in to attract people. And you know, as we work with developers, it's about diminishing both risk and question marks. But that's a big piece out there. We anticipate there'll be more community-based, local developers as opposed to some large developer taking the full 10 acres. We see more local accessory uses. You know, you see by UConn, next thing you know is a diagnostic, an x-ray showing up the next day, Jefferson Radiology, Quest Diagnostics, they tend to build upon these things. So we build upon that, but we're trying to give this commission a vision to allow developers. We don't know what the market demands, but when people do come in, we will vet those things and make sure, one, they don't diminish the quality of the future development, and then two, that they're in the spirit of the expectations of what that is. The market is to be honest with you, it's still in flux about what people are. Housing is obviously something, but that has something. But we see restaurants, retail, those type of things, but we have to work on those things.
And just to your point, there's so many, I think I talked about it last month, but I think it's a strong possibility of targeting some of our local businesses that have been here for years, right? And that looking to come downtown, looking for the space that they could, the ideal space that they've always dreamed
We're
of.
meeting with one next week.
Yeah, exactly. So looking for that space, want to come downtown, just don't have the, it's this existing space just doesn't work for them. They're going to come. It's going to happen. It may be slower, we'll see, but that presents the opportunity to build new. We do the same thing, the same trick in our industrial park, right?
Yeah.
We have a good
Oh, yeah,
problem
yeah.
to have. A good problem to have is that we don't have that much industrial space that's available for sale. So we pivot right to the industrial park and building new. I think eventually we'll be able to do that across the street.
And I think the local will be taking smaller pieces as opposed to, I think the reality of somebody just taking down, and I assume that's why we're involved, if somebody taking down the full remaining parcel is one big thing. Economically, I think those are just not, those days are gone by. But I think it actually harkens back to the history of Bristol, right? The smaller, kind of locally based, but we'll see, but it's about providing an attractive package to allow developers. The fact that some people are already calling is, people, like I said, somebody called me and said, not really sure, but I'm paying attention.
Well, and I think, let me just add that, we're going in with expectations, but we don't have the expectations. If we don't have an idea, we're gonna have, I can tell you, when you said retail, I don't see a Target coming down here if that's what you were getting at a Walmart, no way. I see more of a smaller buildings. They're gonna tell us where we should put perhaps infrastructure, roads, walkways, and that's gonna change the 10 acres to maybe 3 acres here and 2 acres here, or whatever they come up with, so.
But to Chris's point too, as we go through this planning process, we get the public input and ideas like that come through, and it's just supported by the community. That's when we get on the horn and start cold calling those arenas and those companies to try to bring it here. So it's sort of a little bit of both.
Through the chair. That's part of the beauty of your presentation, from my perspective, because those of us who have been familiar with development, you think about recycling the buildings. We're redeveloping downtown Bristol for a very long time, and the massive component with Bristol Hospital, that's a big building that's hard to recycle sometimes. Mm-hmm. The beauty what you proposed, or what we talked about, was we're gonna have multiple sized buildings, big, medium, small, in these parcels. So when you think about recycling in the years to come, that's probably, I think, a very important planning technique, don't you think?
Yeah, it hits, right now in today's market, what you're looking at is giving a variety of choices, so you're a little more resilient to changes in the economy. If you have different sized pads and buildings that are available, you're looking at a different array of end users where you're much more now desirable to the masses rather than one niche area. And the days of having a master developer for a large chunk and putting all your eggs in one basket, many communities are getting away from that. We've had discussions recently in Meriden. They're going through an entire downtown revitalization around their downtown. And they went out for developer RFPs, and they opted to select different developers for each little parcel in the little area. And they have about 3 developers now that were vying for different pieces that have now landed. But the strategy there was saying, well, if something were to happen with one of these developers, and we went with one developer, we're at square one. Now we have numerous options in different phases. We're able to move the project along. And we're seeing that approach, that model, over and over again throughout the state in this type of economy we're in. And that seems to be the best model going forward to be able to tackle the remaining 10 acres that we have here.
You don't have all your eggs in one basket. In an economic downturn, there's a little bit of, hopefully, a safety net.
And while you go through that whole process, it's how do you make something special there? How do you bring in amenities such as some open space? How do you make it where it can be very welcoming, looking at it almost like a new urbanist approach to be able to have this own little contained sub-downtown area within there that's still attractive to the masses, and that a variety of different business types can come in here, help support depending on what the market is and what the community desires. But really to make a sense of place, it's about placemaking in the downtown, finally making that site special again and really bringing out the best of it.
So one of the things that when we met with Malone MacBroom, which touched me, and because Justin and I were talking about it, leads us to the next item on the thing, is they talked about rebranding the square, the site. So one thought that we had was renaming the downtown. So what I'd like to propose, if the board is inclined, is let's put it out to the public. Let's put it to the public. Do you like the name Depot Square? Do you want to keep it? Maybe they want to keep it. Give any suggestions, send them to the BDA.
The main BDA email is bda@bristolct.gov. We'll put out a press release.
And we'll put out a press release tomorrow, so that we'll put it on our Facebook page, everybody can share it. And what we'll do is we'll get the names together and we'll look at it. Maybe everybody says leave it the way it is. Maybe there's another name that everybody likes. But in my opinion, that name right now is tied to a failed project. And I think we really need to change the name, to get we got positive energy going now. It's an exciting time in the downtown Bristol, and I think we need to build on that momentum.
No, man, I think that's a smart thing. I think that's a great idea. You know, I thought about putting it out to the school kids and having a contest and give them some Bristol Blues tickets, shirts, and dinner certificates.
Well, we could do it to the public and the high schools too. We could do it to both.
For grammar schools?
Yeah.
It was an 11-year-old girl that named it the first time.
Yeah.
Cocaine Corner is not.
That's the one I was thinking
It's
about.
already taken, isn't it?
I have so many comments for that. Tim?
One last question. The utilities in storm, developer's responsibility this time?
What are you talking about?
What's that?
Well, there was some discussion with our last developer where the city would be providing utilities on the site along with storm.
A storm for what?
Storm lines.
Oh, storm. Well, that's to be determined. I mean, we committed through the Depot Square, I think it was $2.4 million, if I remember, $2.4 million. What I envision, in my own mind, is something similar to what we do in the industrial park. Once we know where the roads are gonna go, perhaps the city should put those roads in. And that leaves the pads, for lack of, I guess that's what you call them, right? Pads. So a developer could see, this is where it is. Now, maybe we don't put them all in, maybe we put some of them, because we want to leave it, so maybe a bigger developer comes in and says, I have a different idea. But that, again, we have no expectations, because we're leaving it all open, everything is new again. And that's why you don't see any conceptual designs here, because we don't want to put the false persona out there with pictures, like in the past with people holding hands skipping down the sidewalk. We're gonna put out what we could actually develop.
With future connections for future development.
Exactly, so
Right.
that's why, we may put a road in, we may not, it's to be determined where we go, but I have no problem as the mayor going to the Board of Finance and looking for a commitment from the Board of Finance to put in infrastructure, if this board decides that that's where we're gonna go. And maybe the design that they come up with has 4 roads and we decide to put in one main road. It could be anything.
I only brought it up because it was part of the discussion before.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if it was.
Just real quick, geographically, does the river run underneath this area? And can we open it, you think, maybe?
Probably not.
You know, I looked at the same thing. I believe it's on the corner.
Southwest.
And unfortunately, it goes across just such a short stretch that, and I think it was piped not that long ago, and I know Bristol's had issues.
60s maybe?
I thought it was,
1969.
yeah, but it does go across the corner. I looked at it, but unfortunately, it's such a, it just kind of cuts the corner. It wasn't.
You can have like just,
The fully
I know,
daylight.
like we just did in Meriden, where we opened the whole thing up, but it was more of a bigger project. So I did look at that.
Well, to the west end realignment, that does open the river up.
Oh.
They're
because don't
taking-
we eventually wanna do a bike path up the
That's
boulevard
part
all
of
the way to
the,
Muzzy?
that's part of the
and-
thing, yeah. That's part of the,
CBYD,
what's that?
CBYD, call before you dig.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna have you digging.
Not in this lifetime.
Anything else?
No orange jumpsuit
All right,
either.
so, I'm hoping the two papers that are here will put in that we're looking for people to, give suggestions to the BDA on names. And, we'll put out a press release to everyone from my office as well. Anything else?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I just want to touch on what Mr. Zioga said. I think by having maybe a field house or some type of outdoor field, it will probably draw people down there. And then if you have sporting events there, people will get out, they'll go to the restaurants, they'll go shopping. It'll be a positive boost for that area, I think. And I think it's a good idea.
All right, anything else? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye, all opposed, motion passes. Thank you all for coming.